welcome to Cactv. This is the newspaper review on Morning Dew. I am Modut Dominic.
And I'm Dapo Oloruto. Good morning, Modut.
Good morning. It's so good to have you today on set.
Yeah.
Yes, so today Engineer Ola will be joining us via virtual, and we'll be right here to hear from him. You know, he's always having so much from his wealth of knowledge to download to us. Engineer Ola, good morning. Can you hear us?
Modut, good morning to you.
Good morning, Engineer Ola. How are you today?
I'm not doing bad at all.
I can see that.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll take a look at the stories making headlines and also the quote for the day. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back shortly.
Welcome back. The quote for the day is from the book of Jeremiah chapter 30 and verse 16. It goes thus: Therefore, all those who devour you shall be devoured. Say amen.
Amen.
And all your adversaries, every one of them shall go into captivity.
Amen.
Those who plunder you shall become plundered, and all who prey upon you I will make a prey.
Amen.
This is the word of the Lord and the quote for the week that I believe, beyond today it will be working for us. The Lord has promised to devour as many that attempt to devour us. People want to devour our finances, people want to devour our health, people want to devour our joy, as many things that we care about. The Lord said He will devour whoever attempts to devour us, and that He will equally plunder them. He will make them a prey, as many that wants us to be a prey. And I pray that this word of the Lord will work for you. It will work for us.
Amen.
It will work for Cactv this day and beyond. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Dapo, for that. That is quite encouraging, and it's the hope that we need for this week. Okay, so diving right on with the first story that we have from the Punch newspaper. You know, we don't have a particular order to which we start with, but we are going to start with the Punch newspaper. And the first story says, banking consolidation. Mega banks boost 10 trillion naira capital base. Others seek fresh investors. As the Capital Bank of Nigeria's proposal to initiate a new banking sector consolidation raises concern among some industry operators. Finding by the Punch indicates that major banks with foreign subsidiaries currently control 9.6 trillion capital base. This is just data compiled by the papers showing that 5 key banks currently have capital above 1 trillion naira each. An analysis of the current capital base data of leading commercial banks in Nigeria revealed that the proposed consolidation, which is yet to be fully conceptualized by the Apex Bank, will most likely affect national, regional, and merchant banks. A number of national, regional, and merchant banks have not grown their capital base over the years in the manner their counterpart with foreign subsidiaries have grown theirs. Okay, so going further, would see that the CBN governor, Olayemi Cardoso, on Friday, in his keynote address at the bank dinner, said the Apex Bank would be asking banks to raise their capital base. He also promised the need to increase the bank's capital base on servicing the $1 trillion economy projected by President Bola Tinubu, as well as the effect of currency devaluation on bank operations. Okay, so that's the first story that we have from the Punch newspaper. So we can see that the mega bank is actually thinking of a boost to their capital and also seeking fresh investors. So I'll also have first I would like to hear from Engineer Ola on this story, because I know he has a lot of things to say. He has, as a last week when we were talking about a story like this, so you could tell that he has so much to say. So Engineer Ola, over to you on this first story. What's your take on this?
Well, thank you very much, Modot. Well, you see, when the president stipulates that he wants to revive the economy, and you are talking about $1 billion project that will raise the capital to $1 billion project. It's a very Herculean task for all the banks, the commercial banks, because they have to raise their capital base. And then we are now looking at how they are going to do it, and how it's going to be, and how it's going to work. But from my own point of view is that I would rather suggest that the central bank should focus on the primary assignment of CBN. Because many economic scholars have been talking that if you raise the base capital of banks, like for example, Nigerian banks, those banks that have subsidiaries in abroad, that they have branches within so many countries of the world, and they have affiliation to foreign banks, they may be able to raise this amount of money. Of course, they have that money. About 9 banks in Nigeria today can boast and say, okay, we can raise our capital already. We have raised the capital, but some commercial banks and some banks in the state will not be able to do that. So I think, to me, economically, the Central Bank of Nigeria should focus on the primary task, which is to address the issue of foreign exchange in the country.
Okay.
That is number one. When you address the issue of foreign exchange in the country, and then you address the issue of inflation in the economy. I could remember in 2005, when Soludo was the governor of Central Bank, this is the same policy that was outlined, that we have to raise the base capital for some banks, which made some banks to emerge. Now, when you look at it, Nigerian bankers, they don't have problems with this because they have been surviving without the foreign investors. Because of this inflation, investors are very afraid to come to the country to invest their money. Most of them have withdrawn from the economy because of this policy. The banking policy must be the topmost priority, and must have continuity. Not that we now have an economic project that, okay, the president wants us to achieve the goal of $1 billion into Nigerian economy, but the banks, are they really ready? We don't like this to be theoretical, but we want it to be practical. The fundamental issue now is to address the issue of inflation, address the issue of foreign exchange.
Okay.
That is the valuation of Naira. Address this issue. When these issues are addressed, then you see the Nigerian economy will move. Because Nigerian bankers, Nigerian economists, Nigerian investors have been surviving the country without the foreign investors. Because the foreign investors left. But when the economical ground is suitable, they will come back. They will come back and invest their money. It's a very good step, but like I used to say, it's one thing to make a policy. It's another thing to have continuity on the policy. And other sectors, that is people that are involved in making sure that this policy will work. This issue also must be addressed thoroughly, and when everybody is abreast of the situation, I think we'll have a better economic formula in the country. That's my own. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Engineer Ola. So first, we also have to look at it, and whatsoever proposal we have on ground, it has to be realistic before we can think of having investors come in. We have to first put our house in order to make sure that we are ready for the task ahead. All right, so moving forward, we'll take a look at the second story from the Punch, and this says the lecturers shortage hits varsities. ASU blames JAPA, IPPIS. Universities in Nigeria are battling a severe shortage of staff as thousands of lecturers leave tertiary institutions to seek greener pastures in foreign lands amid the high number of retirements at the varsities. The Academic Staff Union of Universities branches in separate interviews with the Punch on Sunday confirmed this, adding that the shortage was due to the surge in the exit of lecturers out of Nigeria and the concern around the integrated personnel and payroll information system. ASU at the Usmanu Danfodio University, Sokoto, said about 100 lecturers had left the varsity, while the union at the Federal University, Gaswa Zamfara, disclosed that the institute was in need of about 100,000 lecturers to fill the vacancies created by those who had left. The union at the Federal Universities of Agriculture, Abeokuta, Ogun State, said over 350 academic vacancies were available at the institution, whilst 27 lecturers had left 2 faculties at the University of Lagos, as 100 workers at the University of Uyo traveled out of the country. The chairman, Olusegun Agagu University of Science and Technology, Okitipupa, Ondo State, Dr. Rotimi Olorunshola said many of the staff of the institution, I beg to say, both academic and non-academic, had left the university. Okay, so this story really calls for a lot of concern, and while we are at it, I would say that for me, the story behind this is not the Japa syndrome, because first, what is the major reason why they are leaving or seeking for greener pastures? If you hear people talk about things and you're asking them questions, they'll be like, see, the thing is not that we don't have peace in our nation. It is not that we are not happy to stay here, but what we are getting is not meeting up the demands of what they have on ground. Now, talking about this, people are already being owed salaries. Lecturers are already being owed salaries. My younger brother, I said sometime last week that he just went back to school because he complained that they were on strike because the lecturers were not paid. Even the student union also were not paid. A lot of staff could not work, so they were on strike. He had to come back home. So this is because they are not being paid. It is not the Japa syndrome thing, because something has to lead to this Japa syndrome. Nobody would want to leave a land where there is peace to a place where you know that you will have to go and work his ass out to make ends meet. I know that it is good to travel out to the greener pastures, but what is the issue behind this? Why are people leaving? That is the first question I'm going to ask you, and therefore this is over to you.
Okay, thank you for that question. Well, I think we have an issue on ground which has led to the Japa syndrome. People are leaving the country in a desire for greener pasture. People are leaving medicine. People are leaving teaching job. People quit. Some, even civil servants, are resigning their duty posts to look for greener pasture. Some in UK, some in Canada, some in US. Some even migrated to Dubai. So, and some even went to Ghana.
That was what I was about to say.
That's
Dubai
how,
is even better.
That's how bad
it has
affected people in an effort to survive, looking for survivor. And now, as it affects our education, it shows that we are not serious at our duty as a country, as people who are supposed to, knowing fully that education is one way to liberate our people from poverty, and now we have systematically impoverished them by denial of their education. Even for us to be able to afford to watch teachers leave means that we don't want our people to be educated. But if we truly want a country, that is a literated, liberated, full of literates, up and down, we should focus on retaining our teachers, empower them, give them allowances that makes them feel that they have not been treated, that will make them not feel that, if I'm rendering the same service in UK, I'm likely to have the same benefit. We must come out with, some standard that it will enable teachers stay within and stay at home. I don't want to jackpot for, because they are not, it's not as if they are treated well, but they would prefer rather be a slave there and feed well than to be
well,
a prince there and starve.
That's the basic thing. Earn well.
Yeah.
Not just
you get here you are claimed to be a prince, but you starve. But there you are treated as a slave, but you feed. So people will prefer to be a slave and feed well than to be called a prince and starve. That's the situation we have on ground. So virtually all the university, you can imagine hundreds in their hundreds. The payroll is showing that is, they are saying, to hell with you and the peanuts you pay us. I don't want to remain on your payroll. I don't want to remain your country. And what are the things leading to these things? Insecurity inclusive.
Exactly.
When you earn a little and then you still have to negotiate that little with kidnapper, doesn't make any sense. You are down with ailment, you still have to negotiate that little with medical personnel. The ailment that can even drain all. There is not medical insurance for staffs, for teachers and all. So there is a lot of things to consider in this Jagba story. Well, all we can do at the end of it is appeal to the government of the day to look into the matter. The Minister of Education should, put his house together and see how they can bring a permanent solution to all this maltreatment for teachers, because it's leading to ASU strike. It's leading to lots of chaos in the education sector. And I believe with the intervention of the appropriate quarters, we can give this a better resolution and not crisis.
All right. So Engineer Ola, let me come to you. What's your take on this story, and then what do you think is the way forward? How do you think the government can come in and see to this that this does not become a continuous process?
The first and foremost, the funding. Government is not putting enough money into education in Nigeria.
Exactly.
The funding is very poor. And when the funding is very poor, what do you expect? There will be no progress. On the second point is that interference from the government. There's embargo on employment in our universities. Before you can employ a professor, there are about 7 or 9 federal government agencies that have to approve. So there is no way the university will grow without running freely on our own. This undue interference from the federal government is affecting the educational sector in the country. You are not giving them funding, and then you have embargo on employment. Before you can employ, you have to go to this ministry, that ministry, before you seek approval from the Auditor General of the Federation, before you can employ in the university. And those of them who are working now, they are underpaid. The remuneration they take home is nothing to write home about. So what do you expect? People will move out to look for where it is better. It's like in those days, when there's no rainfall, when there's dry season and the river is drying up, our forefather will migrate and move to another place where there's rainfall, there's enough of water, for their life. The same thing is happening, except like that was said, except the federal government have to look into the matter. Maybe perhaps give back the autonomy of the university to each university to run on their own. I think Obasanjo was doing it when he was the president of Nigeria, that all the educational research institutes in the country must get money from their own and to run their facilities. But now it is not so. Every university has the consultancy firm. Like if you go to University of Lagos and go to civil engineering department, you realize that they can't get a job anywhere because of what? They don't have enough funding to buy equipment and to be able to train the children. So these bonds lie in the hand of the federal government of Nigeria, that is to look inward into the educational sector and then make recommendations and start a new program. Otherwise people will continue going. For example, look at India. Indians are all over the world, and yet when you go to any school, any college of higher learning in India, you will still see Indians working at home. Then they will tell you that the best engineers are in India, they are not outside India. That's what the Indians will tell you. But in Nigeria here, we will say, are we going to say the best engineers are around here? They are not. They have all left. I was in Saudi Arabia and I saw Nigerian doctors performing wonderfully. Nigerian engineers performing wonderfully. Everywhere in the world, Nigerians are performing wonderfully. But at home, the federal government is not taking care of the educational sector. So my advice is that federal government should look into this matter and solve this problem, because the students of today are the leaders of tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Engineer Ola. It's quite a sad one because years before now, therefore you could agree with me that years before now this wasn't the case.
Yeah.
If you look at it, in the past 2 years we've had families, before you turn your back, somebody has said, I just traveled. I'm like, how? Not just one person, but the whole family. So it now becomes, it's becoming a trend for this Japa syndrome, and to now see that is affecting our academy is the part I really do not like, because what then is now the faith of the students still in school. Because take it or leave it, if there is shortage in lecturers, it will definitely affect the student. Because take for instance, if I was taking literature and then you're taking let's say art, if art is no longer there and it's just literature teacher, what happens to the art students? So there is so much in this that we really plead that the federal government step into this, look into this, because it is a very critical part of the economy. Education is key, and we really need this in our society. All right, so let's take a look at the last story that we have from the Punch newspaper, and this says armed robbers invade Ogunpoli communities, shoot students. Some suspected armed robbers have invaded the Ipara Remo and Odiremo communities, hosting some students of the Gateway Polytechnic, Sapade, in Remo North local government area of Ogun State. Just as some students were shot with female students allegedly sexually molested. Punch Metro gathered that the suspected robbers stormed the community around 1 a.m. to 2 Fridays ago and last Sunday, shooting sporadically and entering into students' hostel to cut away their belongings, molest some female students, and also shoot some others, among which was Francis Downfor, leaving him in a critical condition. Some pictures obtained by our correspondent showed students with injuries on the bodies, damaged window shield and burglar proof and bullet shield covered from the scenes of the attack. The students who spoke in separate interview with our correspondent on Thursday disclosed that the robbery attack had become a reoccurring decimal in the community over time, but it got to its peak during last Sunday's attack. Okay, a source also shows that within the community who spoke on a condition of anonymity for fear of being attacked, disclosed that aside from last week's attack, there was a previous robbery incident which took place 2 Fridays ago, where some students were shot and one was feared dead from the gunshot injury. This is another sad story, like Engineer Ola would always say that I don't like reading news because it's always sad, sad stories, and this is so sad that we also have to face this, and this boils down to insecurity in the state. And to even know that this is not the first time this is happening, source also shows that it has been a repeated or reoccurred situation in the state so far. So, Engineer Ola, now coming to you, what's your view on this, and what do you think is the cause of this, and how do you think we can manage this situation as a state?
Again, we have to go back to blame the federal government of Nigeria. On one point, when you establish a university or higher school of learning, you must provide hostel. This school does not have a very good, does not have hostel. The students stay outside the campus, and what do we expect? No protection, no security. Even the police that were around, according to what I read in the news, the police that were around, they were called by one of the student leader, but they did not respond. They have to inform the area commander, that is the police area commander, about the situation, what is to be done. So this thing has to boiling down to the issue of security. Exactly. In the country. In other countries, when it is late in the night, you will see police forces moving around the town, parading, especially at the school of higher learning, to make sure that the students are secure. But nothing like this is being done here. First, we have to accuse the police for neglecting their duties. The duty of the police is to protect Nigerian citizens. And why they are not doing that? What do you expect these local armed robbers will do? They know that these Nigerian students, some of them, they are rich. They are from rich home. They will attack them and take money from them. So I will put my blame on the government, that the government has provided security to each universities. And at the same time, Nigerian University Commission should not approve any university without hostel facilities to secure the students. If you don't have secured hostel facilities for the students, how do you protect them?
Exactly.
We were talking a while ago about the educational system in the country. We are talking about how to improve on the education. We are talking about the welfare of the teachers. Now we are going back again to talk about the safety and security of the students. So the Nigerian University Commission should look into this matter, that all universities, all colleges of higher learning in Nigeria must have adequate security. I could remember in those days when we have to hire soldiers, to make sure to monitor the students at the secondary school level. It has come back again. Maybe the federal government should look into it, how to provide securities for all the institutions of higher learning in the country, so that the students can learn. That will be no excuse. The armed robbers will come, they will rape the students, enjoy the students, and maim and kill some students. This is not too good at all, because you are just doing a very big irreparable damage to the parents of these students.
All right, Engineer Ola, thank you. And I can also imagine the fear in the heart of students, especially now. Going back to school is one major issue, because they have to be afraid of what exactly is going to happen next. And I am more concerned that this incident had happened before. Record shows that it has happened before. Now, this last one that just took place, that we just read about, shows that it was worse than the first one, meaning that nothing was done in the first, when something happened in the previous one. There was no measure. If there was measure put in place, if they had taken the security of that school seriously, this wouldn't have happened. Even if it had happened, it wouldn't have been as worse as this is. So it still shows that there is so much concern. There's the government are not paying a lot of attention. They are not even paying attention to the academic sector as a whole, and also to the students. Dapo, what's your view on this before we go on a break?
Well, my view is just to condemn the situation, that it's not a good one for a country. It's not a win for the student. It's a bad blow on the face of our educational structure, and how our government tend to secure citizens. Come to think of it, students, there is a whole lot on the hand of a student, to care for. To now have to deal with insecurity again, I think that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable for a student who is still struggling with school fees, struggling with handouts, struggling with lectures and all, feeding. Even to have those hostels, it takes a lot to secure an hostel.
Exactly.
Now they have one. What would a student have with him or her? Probably a pack of noodle, little beverage,
I really do not understand.
and then you will go there and
problem
unleash
about
terror on them in the name of.
This still boils down to the fact that people are hungry.
So
What would a robber be looking for from a student?
to a student, I don't
get
know.
it.
So insecurity has become a major challenge for us as a nation, and we are just begging the government to please. We are not abusing you, Joe. Please, we are begging you, secure the lives of our students, the lives of even the parents too, the masses. Everybody is suffering. The hardship is getting worse.
Honestly. All right, on this note, we'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll look at further stories making headlines from Vanguard and also The Sun. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back shortly. Yes, welcome back from that quick break. You're still watching Newspaper Review on Morning Dew. Thank you so much for staying tuned to CACTV. So, moving on to the next story. We're going to be looking at the stories from Vanguard newspaper. And the first story from Vanguard says, more Nigerians opt for loans to make ends meet. The pressure on the household income is coming from persistent increases in prices of goods and services triggered by the naira depreciation, food supply gap, and other environment circumstances, including insecurity. The National Bureau of Statistics (NBS) last week reported the 10th consecutive month rise in inflation rate to 27.33% for October 2023, while food inflation was reported at 31.52%. The growth in consumer loans was also enhanced by measures deployed by banks, including digital innovations and capabilities, simplified processes, and minimal documentation. improved product design and flexibility, as well as increased publicity and customer engagement. Okay, so that's the first story from the Punch, and like we're saying, offset. People are going through stuff. The government is borrowing. People are borrowing, and why is this happening? It is because there is so much hardship in the country. People are struggling. See, Nigerians are not lazy. Trust me. Nigerians are not lazy. You need to go out there and see how people are working tirelessly to make sure that they can even provide a square meal for the family. And a neighbor of mine we're talking last weekend, and he was like, hey, see meat I bought though. See meat that I bought, meat that if I buy 10,000 naira meat, it will be enough for how long to cook, like how many pots. We'll cook stew from it, we'll cook soup from it, we'll make sauce with it. But now it's not even enough for a pot of soup. And I'm like, this is the point where we are in Nigeria. And now we are talking about people getting to a point of borrowing loans from bank. This is because there is so much hardship, and I really wish that our government will look into it and do something about it. Engineer Ola, I am coming to you on this. I know you have a lot to say on this, but first I would want to know, what do you think is the way forward with this story that we have?
Well, thank you very much. I think the way forward is the government has to look into the mismanagement of funds. That is, what Sarap is saying is right, but we will not say the World Bank should probe Nigerians for taking the loan and spending the money erroneously. What we have to say here is that federal government of Nigeria should look into the matter that the states, 36 states in the country, are taking loans. What are they doing with the loans? How are they mismanaging the loans? If the federal government can be able to monitor this transaction very well, more will be achieved. There is high inflation in the country. Of course, when there's inflation in the country, consumers will tend to borrow money to be able to feed. And when in the nation, the citizens are borrowing money to feed, there's problem with the economy. So I think what the federal government should do on this matter is that set up a panel, or make sure that you inject the committees that are supposed to do their job very well, so that they can do their job very well, and then start to investigate the money that were borrowed from World Bank into the country, and how the state governments are spending the money, how they have spent the money, and how they are spending the money, how you'll be able to recover back the loan they have taken. I think that is the procedure. There's no gainsay about that. There should be a standard probe to all the loans that have been taken to this country, to monitor the loans. When the loan is coming to the country, the Central Bank of Nigeria, of course, what the president is doing now is trying to investigate the Central Bank, that is for the past 8 or 10 years, how they have been spending money. And at the end of the day, you realize that there will be many pages uncovered. So I think the federal government should throw the same part, that any money that has been borrowed to this country now must be monitored, must be thoroughly investigated, and you'll be surprised that many people will be brought to book. That's my own statement on that.
All right, thank you so much, Engineer Ola. So, Dapo, over to you.
You see, I think just behind the cameras we were discussing about how badly this has affected everyone. I doubt there is up to 10% Nigerians who are not faced with one hardship or the other. Because the rich, it's not that the rich also cry, the rich too are now crying. Because to pay bills, everybody is dipping into their reserve, and that's how people get poor. If you exhaust all that you have, and you have now exceed your limit and now dip into your reserve, you are likely to go poor. It's unfortunate that the government is not paying attention to any of this crime. The citizens are faced with severe hardship. What Nigerians are going through is what we can describe as severe hardship. Every price, the pricing of things in the market is triple. People can't feed, and inflation had taken away the place of standard of goods and price. So what I would just say is, maybe it is a pandemic, like we'll call this. So, sincerely, it's no longer looking like there is a government who is administering, the welfare of the economy or anyone. It's just like we are in pandemic, the government too are in pandemic, because they borrow, federal borrow, state borrows. Now citizens are borrowing, everybody's now borrowing. So I don't know how they tend to resolve the matter. So this is becoming uncurtailable. I don't know. So maybe we should describe it as, the country is in a pandemic, maybe economic pandemic or something, or famine. Because this is even worse than famine. People are at the extreme of the war. So I don't know. I probably don't hit each other, but the government should shout, please. We don't know they exist. That's the sad part. So who is listening to who?
All right, so we'll take the next story that we have still from Vanguard, and this says Sarab to World Bank suspend loans to state over misspending. The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, Sarab, yesterday urged the World Bank President, Mr. Ajayi Banga, to suspend issuing loans to Nigeria's 36 states over allegations of mismanagement public fund, including loan obtained from the institution. It also urged the World Bank to probe the spending of over $8.5 billion in loans and other facilities by the 36 state governors in Nigeria. Sarab, in a statement by its deputy director, Kolawole Oluwadare, said the World Bank and its partners cannot continue to give loans and other funding to these states where there are credible allegations of mismanagement or diversion of public funds. We are concerned that there is a significant risk in mismanagement or diversion of funds linked to the bank's investments in many of the country's 36 states. Now, going further, the story also said have it that it is neither appropriate nor responsible lending to give loan to these states only for the loans to be mismanaged or misspent. Okay, so looking at that story, we would also see that this is more like related to the last story that we have, but I'm seeing that we are able to note some of the, or refer to some of the states or the governors who mismanage funds and then still come back to seek for loan is a no-no. And here, now Sarab is also coming out to urge the World Bank to suspend issuing of loan. And I'm like, they are issuing loan and then they are not asking, is it that they don't ask questions? How have you been able to manage the last loan that you collected? What have you used it for? They can't account for it. And I remember Engineer Ola right here, we used to say that if a loan is being mismanaged, check again, what exactly have they done? No accountability for anything. And then people keep going back to borrow loans and loans and loans and loans, and this is so sad that is also coming from our state. So Engineer Ola, I'm coming to you. What is your take on this?
In a situation where there's insecurity, there will be no production. Let's take Nigeria as an example. Basically, Nigeria relies so much on petroleum products and agricultural produce. But when people cannot go to farm, that means the food basket is dead or gone. Now, talking about inflation in the country, in a situation where you have inflation, there will be food scarcity. And this is what is happening right now. People are borrowing money to buy food. But some people are saying, World Bank, do not borrow any state in Nigeria any money again. But when you look at the conclusive end of that statement, it will affect everybody generally. But what the government is supposed to do now is what I have said, that the government should look into this borrowing scheme and make sure that government monitors the money that is coming to the country, that is well spent.
Exactly.
When you have inflation in the country, how do you survive in the economy? You have to go out and borrow money. When the government is borrowing money to pay salaries, So what do you expect? I could remember in those years when Kofi, president of Ghana, was saying that 70 or 80% of the money we generate goes in Ghana goes into salary. But Nigerian reverse is the case. The money, the ITR we are generating in the country is not enough to pay salaries of the executives, the judiciary, and the legislators. You borrow money to fund this democracy. You borrow money to eat. How will the economy grow? So I think the work of the central bank now is to make sure that we address this, what is causing poverty in this country, which is how would I call it, fast inflation rate. If the inflation is addressed properly, the federal government is introducing a new economic policy. I just pray it will work. If there is proper monitoring, it will work. So this, I think, what the government has to do is not for any agency to say suspend the loans given to them. That Nigerians will starve to death, but monitor the loans, that the money is well spent. That Nigerians should be prudent in spending money. They can address this situation with that. But without that, if you want to stop Nigerians taking loan from abroad, that will be, I don't know what will happen in the country. But because anybody can borrow money, but when you spend the money very well, in about 2-3 years to come, your life will change. But when you borrow money, you don't borrow money to invest into the economy. You borrow money to eat. You borrow money to buy cars. You borrow money to when your legislator is writing about 100 million worth of car. You borrow money to buy this. You are not injecting the money to the economy, and what do you expect? The economy will collapse. So I think the government is listening to what we are saying, and the governor of central bank too should be very careful with the policy that will not affect Nigerians negatively.
All right. More money on spending unnecessarily. This is not to be condoned at all, and I look forward to them coming up with something tangible to put an end to this. If the governors are coming out to borrow from the state, what then is the fate of the state as a whole? Okay, lastly, we'll take a look at the story before we call it a day. Let's take a look at the last story. This says how to prevent electoral shambles in Nigeria by Prof. Atairu Jega. Professor Atairu Muhammadu Jega, former national chairman, Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is a man you love, you have to love to love. Is a man you have to love. Okay, I'll come back to that. Okay, whereas the relationship was one that experienced immense turbulence on account of individual commitment to service. The meeting between the writer and the former INEC chairman in far away London in August 2015 was one of conviviality. Jega's sense of equanimity despite all that transpired was infectious and reciprocated. Therefore, when last week a call was placed to the former INEC chairman, it was a hope rather than expectation. But he returned the call, although an interview appointment could not immediately materialize. Professor Jaga sent the presentation he made to the Senate retreat last month. In the statement, in the following text, I beg to say, are profound words of a man who mean well for the electoral system. His reviews on the Electoral Act 2022 and observation and possibly pathway for better elections in Nigeria would help in assisting a polity part that is ready, also pulverized by assault and political bandits. Okay, so that's the last story that we have to take. I'm really trying to understand his advice to the nation, but I think he has so much to say, considering someone who has been in the field before now. But how well was it with him when he was there? and what is his advice and his input going to have affect, how is it going to affect the current people in the INEC sector. So coming to you, Engineer Ola, what's your view on this before we call it a wrap?
Well, Professor Jaga was former INEC chairman, and I don't understand by the word is a man you love to love. I don't understand it. There's something that is with our past, let's say past leaders of an office. That is when they are out of the office, that is when they start
giving advice
and professing solutions to problems they left behind. So the era of Jega is gone, as he has written a letter to the Senate. If he can give them suggestions, and if they deem it fit, they can follow it up. I don't have much to see on that man Jega, because I don't like commenting on somebody who is no longer in the system. So I don't have much to say about him. I wish him good luck.
All right, Dapo, what's your last take on this story before we round up?
Well, I think Professor Tariq Jaga was the hero of the 2007 election. He was the one that made President Muhammadu Buhari, the former president, that elected APC. Unfortunately, the APC has shown Nigerians shiggy. But because in May, everybody sees him to be a very responsible professor. They see him as a credible person that anytime he speaks is followed to be a man of say it and do it. So on that note, what are his recommendations on the betterment of the electorate, and then how the INEC officials can serve the country better, and so on and so forth. So for me, it's not a story so delighting. Like we just had elections, and election is still on going, and as far as the judge is concerned, no.
What's actually
I don't know what INEC
is that statement of is a man you have to learn, you have to love to learn. Okay, so the writer's story behind this, the writer's motive behind this is what I'm still trying to get a picture of. But be that as it may, this is what we'll call it a wrap on today's newspaper review on Morning Dew. Thank you so much for being a great part of today's newspaper review, and I'm sure that you enjoyed yourself or you had a fantastic time with us as much as we did. Okay, thank you so much, Dapo, for joining us. Thank you so much, Engineer Ola, for joining us offset. We miss you on set today. So what's your last word for the people, Engineer Ola?
Well, like I used to say, be Nigerian, buy Nigeria. Bye.
All right, thank you so much, Oladapo.
Well, God bless you. God bless Nigeria.
All right, let me follow the lead. God bless you, God bless Nigeria, and we hope for a better nation. We look forward to a better nation where people would work freely without having to have insecurity issue, and where people would have a lot to eat and to drink. Till we'll come your way, same time, same station. Thank you so much for joining us. We call it a wrap. Do have a blessed day ahead.
CACTV, igniting the apostolic fire.